Do caveats expire?
Yes, that actually brings me to my next point. A caveat, like I said earlier, is an interim remedy. Interim remedies in law are short-term remedies. So a caveat is your temporary savior. If you want quick relief from, let's say, a doctor, if you've been injured, if let's say you got an injury in your hand, you're going to go for first aid. So a caveat is your first aid. If someone comes claiming that, you know what, Terry is not the owner of his land, or someone is playing with your land title, something like that, you immediately rush and get a caveat, like the process I had explained of lodging a caveat. So that window of expiry is about 60 days. Yes. So 60 days is approximately
2 months.
2 months.
What happens after 2 months that this person has not done anything? Because we are dealing with Ugandans, and we are dealing with our own people that we actually know very well. Because this is interim, and then once they do that, somebody will go back comfortably and say, after all, I actually lodged a caveat on my property, so and they can wait forever.
Yes.
What happens after 60 days? What happens after 60 days and nothing has happened? Do I put another caveat? Can I keep putting caveat after caveat after caveat after caveat? Or it has to be one and then find a solution? Can I live on painkillers forever? Because caveats are painkillers. Can I live on painkillers until I develop or do anything?
No, you cannot live on painkillers, because even when you look at our body, you cannot live on painkillers. By the time there is pain, it means that it's an indication of something. So by the time you've rushed to lodge a caveat, it means that you must have had a reason, as someone who has caveatable interest in your land. So in most cases, people who have lodged a caveat, they now take further court action. Their lawyers or their counsel, their advocates, advise them to go to take court action, either in issues of, let's say, when it comes to someone claiming that they are the real proprietor of that land, or they're the real owner of your registered land. Then you can look at other remedies like cancellation of title. Or in very extreme cases, when the other party has refused to withdraw their claim that they are the registered owner, then we look at issues of compensation of you who you paid your land, you paid your money, and you feel like, anyway, let me let this go. You can now look at issues of compensation from the vendor.
That's a legal bit of it, and that's how it should be like. But we have people who actually go, lodge a caveat, and forget about it. And once they know that they have lodged a caveat on this property or against this property, then they've done it.
They let it go.
Exactly. They let it go. Now they have a lawyer, like a woman who's also very busy. They're working on very many different things. So they don't remember to come back to you to actually say, we made an application. How far? Let's do all these things. And secondly, because people know that when you go to a court of laws, there are issues that will never end. There are issues that are supposed to be there eternally. And people know these things. So somebody says, let me put my caveat, 60 days, as I'm doing what I'm doing, in a way. So the real situation is what you're explaining. But the ideal situation, where we see people who do it and they never return, what happens to those and what should they do?
I think the ideal situation should be put into the reality moving forward. Because like you've explained, many Ugandans find themselves in these situations. Let me just give a quick example. When it comes to matrimonial property, according to the Land Act, you cannot sell matrimonial property without the consent of your spouse. Many people tend to do this, and many spouses, especially the ladies, they tend not to be aware of these laws. So if a lady is aware of this and she says, oh, my husband, you've gotten a tip that your husband is trying to sell land, or even your wife, it could be either or, your husband is trying to sell a matrimonial property, then you can go lodge a caveat. After, in the process of the 60 days, in that window of the 60 days, then you can take further court action. There are caveats on registered land, there are beneficiary caveats, and there are also caveats on movable property. As you know, in land law and in the law in general, movable properties can be issues of cars, can be issues of chattels. For example, like let's say a kiosk. All of those are components which are not exactly fixed on the land, but they can easily be movable. So for example, now cars, we have issues of logbooks and everything. So if you find that someone is claiming that, let's say, they are the owner of your car and yet you paid for your car legitimately, you can also lodge a caveat on that, since it's categorized as movable property. So when you see this building is not for sale, that is quite different from what a caveat is.
Okay.
A caveat is a legal document, like I had said earlier. This document allows you to stop any dealing on your land until a further dispute is being settled. Now, the person lodging a caveat is called a caveator. I'm going to address the caveat emptor later. A caveator is a person who has caveatable interest. If Mr. Semakula Jagenda bought his land in Mengo or Mutundwe, and a one Mr. Mubiru comes and says, you know what, Mr. Jagenda, I'm the rightful owner of that land. I have a land title here and everything. Yet you, Mr. Jagenda, you've paid your money for that land. You have the receipts, you have the sale agreement, and everything of the sort. Even the person who sold you the land can testify that Mr. Jagenda is the one who I sold the land to. So what you do, you are going to apply for a caveat. So you need to approach a lawyer, because lawyers are the best people who can draft a caveat document for you. So you're going to go to a lawyer. He explained to him what the situation is. He drafts for your caveat. Like I had said, it's a short-term or interim remedy. So a short-term remedy is a remedy which just allows you to stop something in the meantime until you can apply for a further action. So you explain all of this to your lawyer. Then your lawyer is going to draft it for you. He is going to sign on that caveat. Then Mr. Jagenda, you're going to be the deponent who will also sign, meaning you're the person who has interest in that land. Then, after that, you can either give it to someone who will do the formal application for you, or you will do the formal application for you. Take it to the land registry of that area where the land is situated. So, for example, give an example of Mutundwe or Mengo. So you go to the land registry of Mutundwe or Mengo, wherever it is, and then formally apply.
Okay. If somebody came to you and they want to lodge a caveat on any property, how long would it take them to secure that? I'm only thinking for somebody who is watching now and they say, this is the way to go for me. How long would they take to actually have their property caveated? If they're watching the program now and after this program they're moving on to getting a caveat for their property, how long would it take them to secure?
Well, that is a case-by-case basis. It depends on how complicated the situation can be. The other party, there are situations where a vendor, a seller of land, can issue out two legitimate titles and they look exactly the same.
But can two be legitimate?
They cannot be legitimate, but on the face of it, in law we have what's called prima facie. They may look exactly the same. I can make a suit like this which is exactly the same, but it's not the same suit. So for them to battle it out, I'm basically trying to frame it saying the magnitude of the matter. So, and it also depends on the speed, of course, of your lawyer. It depends on also how complicated the situation is. So it's a case-by-case basis, but in most cases it takes a short time. Once you can process the caveat and you can take it to court, like I had said, you have your two copies of the caveat. It's commissioned by Commissioner for Oaths. It's signed by the deponent, who is you, the caveator. Then follow it up after 10 working days and see whether it has been
So how short is a short time? 10 working days?
About 10 working days.
Okay.
If all things are constant, all things considered.
Okay.
I did a video.
How important are caveats to you? You talked about them as interim remedies, as painkillers, or anything, but how important are they that somebody would actually think caveating land or property or anything?
So there are numerous importances of caveats. A caveat number one, like I said, is your temporary savior. If you ever feel like this land of yours or any property of yours, it can be a car, it can be a building in town, it can be land, it can be matrimonial property. If you ever feel like this land is being played with, or even if you get that sixth sense, you know that the law is here to help you. So it comes in as your savior to give you a chance to find other remedies which are going to protect your land, or in which you're going to recover in property that you've lost. So a caveat comes in as your first aid. That's number one. Number two, it gives you certainty that the law is here to protect you. It gives a certainty that if I put my money in a piece of land or in a building or in a car, or if I acquired this property with my wife, my spouse, whoever it is, or my brother, I know that this land should stay intact. So I think I can frame it under respect. So if you feel like this piece of land or property should be respected, then that's how a caveat also comes in to help you. It's a very, very serious document, and it helps many people to achieve many situations. In fact, to either put their money to good use, because if you bought your land at, let's say, 12 billion shillings, then your money can't just go down the drain. If a one Chris Mobiru or Chris Jagen comes and says, you know, Terry, even if you bought that land at 12 billion, I'm still the registered owner of that land. I bought at 13 billion. And he goes to Nasser Road, duplicates his own title. He comes and presents it to you. So you can go get a caveat and then go and battle it out before a judge or a registrar. So it gives you a chance to prepare yourself also. If you've lodged a caveat, it's a temporary remedy. But you can liaise with your lawyer, discuss with him, show him proof that you are indeed the registered owner of this land, or of this car, or of this property, or your spouse cannot sell this land without my consent. So it gives you a chance to go battle it out in court, prepare all of your documents, and yes.
Okay.